Now let's pivot to our next panel discussion, From Old Guard to New Blood, Mastering Seamless Succession Shifts. It's all about the art and science of passing the torch, ensuring that transitions in leadership not only preserve but enhance the values and visions of organizations. Let's dive into this discussion and uncover the keys to successful succession planning. Please put your hands together for our moderator, Nan McKay, founder and CEO of Nan McKay Connects, and our panelists. Let's give them a round of applause. Welcome them to the stage.
Good morning. I'm glad we've still got a few left here, and we are delighted to see you. We've got a presentation that definitely follows the person who was just up here as our keynote, because we're going to talk about some of the same things. And I'd like to introduce you. First, just simply say the names. I'm Nan McKay, and the next person you see in line is Sathya. And I hope I say this right again, Krishnaswamy. I'm close, okay. And we have Karen Clark Marlowe, and we have Shana Jones McGrone, and we have Amber Carlson. Did I say that right? Carlson Hayes. All right. So we've got a panel that's ready to rock you on what happens between the old guard and the new blood. A lot of what Michael was talking about just a minute ago. So let me just introduce myself. I have a company that I started in 1980 that I'm still president of the board. We have about 2,000 employees, and it is still ticking along. I have another one that I am doing right now that you see me up here, and that's my side hustle, and that's Nan McKay Connects, where I do leadership training. And I have a Lead and Succeed program where I train people for about 6 months virtually at a time, and they emerge as supervisors that are effective. So I'd like to then turn it over to Sathya, and would you introduce yourself?
Good morning. My name is Satya Krishnasamy, and my background has been in tech, particularly emerging technologies, providing roles of entrepreneurship within a major insurance company, running academic industry research groups, and specifically focusing on emerging technologies and the emerging business models they open up. Currently, I am part of Chaining Consulting, which is a rigorous applied research-based organization that researches these emerging technologies, sifts out what's possible from what's not possible, or yet how to future-proof technology investments for companies, and more importantly, small businesses and family offices as well.
And Karen, tell us a little bit about yourself.
My name's Karen Clark Marlowe. My business is Options Employment Consulting. I specialize in workplace effectiveness, employment legislation, and people management. I took a voluntary buyout from the government back in 1996 because I got tired of trying to make a change working for a big bureaucracy. So what I saw when I worked in BC Employment Standards was a lot of small to medium-sized businesses could not afford lawyers to help them deal with the issues. So my focus was on small to medium-sized business. I also work a lot with First Nations, where part of my job is to work myself out of a job by mentoring First Nations people to become human resource professionals.
And Shana.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Shana Jones McGrone. I'm the founder and managing attorney of Artisan Law PC, where I work with clients to build their legacy, protect their legacy. I work with my clients in the areas of estate planning, asset protection planning, and business succession planning. I'm really excited to be here with you all today to talk about this topic.
And Amber?
Hello, good morning. My name is Amber Carlson Hayes, and I am the president and CEO of Archway Learning Solutions. For the last 7 years, we've been trying very hard to make training not boring, right? Nobody likes a boring training. So we create engaging training that is connected to organizational culture, that focuses on learning technologies that make considerable impact for the employee and for their leaders, and all following DEI/BA best practices. So that's diversity, equity, inclusion, belonging, and accessibility best practices. I'm also the author of the Ignite Your Legacy series, and I'm excited to share some of the research I've been doing over the last 18 months. I am, ashamed or excited to admit I read over 200 leadership development books and white papers and research articles and interviewed several organizational leaders, and that's in the culmination of my book. So I'm excited to be here and to connect with all of you.
So let's talk about who is this old guard and who are these people that we call the new blood. Now, the old guard certainly are people that have established a lot of what we have today. They've established our systems. They've established our procedures. They've established the way that we do business. But we've got a new gang in town, don't we? We have the new gang who is the new blood. And what are they looking for? What they want is digital learning. They want fast. They want to move up the chain. They want learning and development. They want feedback. They want all those kinds of things. So how do we take this very traditional culture and turn it into a more transformational culture? How do we do that? Well, let's take a look at some statistics, and let me move one forward here where we start to see, hang on a minute, go. We start to see some trends. So we've got some trends when we look at the workforce trends. We've got the baby boomers. Good heavens, they are retiring at 10,000 a day. And I just read something about 2 weeks ago that says that it's really about 80% more than what we thought it was going to be. So they are definitely saying, I've done it, I've had it, I'm going from here. So we've got the turnover that we're seeing there. But what else do we start to see in our workforce trends? We start to see things like skyrocketing turnover. What am I talking about? Well, when you look at your turnover and you start getting your interviews out there and you're seeing things like turnover of 60% from the U.S. perspective, 60%, how are you ever going to continue your retention, your productivity, your revenue? How are you going to continue to do that when you've got turnover like this? I don't know how we're going to do it. And then we look at, well, we're going to hire new people. So you start with that, and you've got the person that you book for the interview. Do you know what? 90% of them are not showing up for the interview. And then you say, well, how about the first day of the job for the few that you've got left that you interview? And you find that it's 22% of them that don't show up for their first day of work. So we're seeing a trend in retention. And then we see they finally do. We get a warm body there, and they do show up for work. And what do we see? We see 17% of them quitting after the first month. And we see 33% of them quitting after the first 90 days. And you say, why? Why are you leaving? Why aren't you here? And the answer could very well be they don't feel engaged, because 70% of the people do not feel engaged at work. Wow. So that means that we're going to have to look at culture. We're going to have to look at what's really happening within our organizations. And because we're dealing with a very digital generation, when we're dealing with the millennials and the Gen Zs, we have to think about what could we do for digital learning? What could we do to then skill them and ramp them up fast? Does it have to be the one-on-one mentoring that we've had in the past? Does it have to continue to be just the procedures, read the manual, you'll get it? No, it isn't like that anymore. So what can we do digitally? Have you seen the e-mentoring platforms? So you don't have to worry whether somebody's remote or not, because they have e-mentoring platforms that you can join, and you can have the old guard explaining how you really do the job, meshed with the younger person, and you can do it vice versa, where the younger person is helping the older person, maybe with technology, until they do walk out that door. You've got things like digital learning platforms. People don't like the talking head anymore. It's fine if it's live, but if it is recorded, they don't want it. So if it isn't the talking head, what's the alternative? I don't know if you've seen a program called Pictory.ai. If you haven't, write that down. Because when you're training your Gen Zs and you're training your millennials, and pretty much that's the group that wants everything now, not 5 minutes from now, then those are the people that you can do the short bursts in video rather than the talking head, 2 to 5 minutes in length, and who cares if you have 10 or 12? Point is that they are learning in the way that they feel comfortable. So there's a lot of things you could do, gamification. But what we must do, what we must fall back on, is that we need to change. We need to take a look at what people really want from the culture today, and we must be resilient enough and open enough and flexible enough to make that change. And we can do it. All right, Seth, how about you? You can either sit or you are welcome to come up here.
All right.
Whichever you would rather.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. And let's move just ahead.
Thanks, Nan. Right. So I will just go over a few more insights, echoing what we heard from Michael and Nan. Clearly, there is a fundamental shift that is precipitating faster than ever, moving from traditional way of thinking in IT systems on even, IT is just a representation, but the underlying businesses are rapidly showing signs of a change. And what these are is Internet 2.0 did a lot of things, made lives easier, new business models emerged. One great example is the YouTube monetization, right? But what's in store next as we enter into Web3 is models where the users, the content creators, are very much part of the entity that are creating the value itself. And this has been experimental so far. My background has been in running innovation services within an entrepreneurial organization and also working with innovation councils across the globe. We have been kind of watching this phenomenon for close to 6 years now and baselining the technology improvements, what's possible, what's not possible at different places. And we are realizing we are at the cusp of a major shift where some of these possibilities and the capabilities have emerged to a point these new emerging business models are now possible. And this is academic research, rigorous research that just got published last month. I can share some details, and there are some baselines. And we see it as a horizontal innovation, and hence myself in some reference implementations were able to see the early stages of what these efficiencies could be, and they are hyper efficiencies, hyper productive efficiencies. So some of the work that we realized of that, we do is about understanding these architectures and what is the significant difference and what are the aspects of how these distributed ledgers work. If AI has done so much, what could a distributed AI model do? If it is possible, if it could be run in real world use cases with privacy and regulated structures. beyond some experimental things that have been going on so far. So these are the services we do, primarily innovation function and services to be able to do rapid experimentation and finding out the factors of scale. And the verticals, we are seeing a whole bunch of opportunities moving on is in this export, import, e-commerce trade cycles on supply chains, cash flow optimization around regulated type of same DLT structures, what it could emerge into, and what effects does it have on insurance content, and more importantly, where the users are going to hang out in this Web3 world and how to reach them. So you can contact us for more details. We will try to, these are some of the partner organizations which are helping us draft these frameworks as we go. And you can learn more. And I'm available for any questions throughout the day here as well. Thank you.
Thank you much. It always helps to know what's on the horizon, especially in technology. I would suggest that you might want to take a picture of QR codes as we go. I did forget my QR code, so I'm going to show you. There it is. And what do you get from that is what you're going to get from several of our panelists, and that is 3 documents that I think are going to very much help you along with getting from here to here in trying to build that culture you're looking for. So that QR code will lead you to 3 downloadable documents. That's one place you're going to see it. In addition, we're going to have a table out and back in the next room. You can see it there as well. All right, now Karen, are you ready to rock them a little bit with what's happening in your life way up in the Yukon, right?
Okay, I'm going to talk about mentorship from several perspectives. I've been in the people management business for 40 years, and I could probably talk for half a day, so I will try to be really, really brief. Right now, I'm doing a project with the First Nation in the Yukon, and as I said earlier, part of my job is to mentor a First Nations person to become a leader. And you can get all of the technical stuff on the steps by going on the internet. So I want to tell you a story based on real experience. I took on a trainee and I was told that, oh my God, this person has no hope. They can't do anything. This trainee happened to be the son of one of the members of the legislature. So guess what? I had to say, yes, I can do it. I worked with this person for 2 years, and not only did I get them to be an HR professional, they became the regional director in an entire region. And some of the things I did was, first of all, yesterday they talked about throwing out traditional job descriptions. I identified the competencies of what this person would need to achieve to be successful, rather than focusing on words on a piece of paper. And then I worked with him to determine what his skills were presently and identified a path as to how he could gain the skills he needed. And the other thing that I did, principle number 1 of adult learning, work from where that person is and not from where you want them to be. And so the other thing was I wanted to respect the culture. So one morning he might phone me and say, Karen, it's a great day for hunting. I want to go hunting. All right, Danny, go hunting. That's fine with me. And that helped really cement our relationship. The Canadian government in their Canada Labour Code now has, for all federally regulated employers, allowing 5 days of traditional pursuits a year for First Nations people. And someone said to me, well, gee, Karen, that's like a holiday. It is not a holiday. It is part of their way of life. And part of successful mentorship is recognizing a person's way of life and integrating that as part of your program. The other point here was this person was very uncomfortable going to a lot of Southern institutions. So I had worked at the College of New Caledonia in Prince George. I called up the president. I said, I have a First Nations person here who has a lot of potential. What can you do to customize a program? And sure enough, they were able to customize a program. So he did not need to go to Southern Canada. he was able to go to Northern British Columbia and get the academic part of the program. And the other thing I did along the way was I measured performance. I often sound like a broken record when I talk about defining expectations, but 90% of the time when people get fired, it's because they haven't been clear about expectations. So therefore, the employee or the mentor or whoever it is really doesn't understand. And defining expectations is like magic. It's just let me know what you want and I'll do it. So along the way, I developed a plan. I spent a lot of time with the mentee. I measured performance and I cared about them as a whole person. And that really did work magic. Their next step is they want to run for political office. So that's one part of my story. The other part of my story is when I first started out in my own business, I was sitting in a client's office. And again, he was a small business and he was on the phone to the president of his industry association. And he said, I have Karen in my office. And you know what we need to do? We need to change the law. And so the president of the association said, well, can't we do it ourselves? And he said, oh no, I won't use a real word he used, but basically he said, we'll just make them mad. She knows how they think. She can take us through this. So I became a mentor to small business owners from 4 industries in how you get through government and change legislation. These guys were totally intimidated. So I brought them all to the table with me instead of doing it myself. And it took me a couple years, but I changed a regulation under the BC Employment Standards Act that developed in win-win for both the employer and the employees. And to this day, they still call me to mentor them through government processes. So my purpose right now is twofold. I'm still working with business, but I'm also working with First Nations because I really believe that they should be in charge of their government rather than non-First Nations people always doing that. So I'm quite fine with working myself out of a job because if you are a successful mentor, there's always another job ahead. It's all about success through successful people. Thank you.
That was great. And it's really true, isn't it? Success through successful people. But, you know, I think the couple of things that you said that are so important are laying out the expectations, doing performance standards, doing those key performance indicators, all those things that we kind of go, oh, do we have to do it? The answer is yes. And your other key thing was measurement, that I think she said you must measure to see where you are. And then if the people are not coming up to standard, then you need to do your individual development plan or something like that.
Yes.
All right. So Shayna, it is your turn.
So everyone, as an attorney, entrepreneur, and attorney business owner myself, I'd like to tackle our topic of moving from the old guard to the new blood to dealing with something that many business owners, we as business owners, may not want to think about, but is exceptionally important to the trajectory of our business. So we all know that at some point we're going to actually be exiting this thing that we've taken the time to create, that we've poured all of this love into. You're going to exit in one way or another, right? You're either going to go out voluntarily because you've sold your business. You're going to go out involuntarily, perhaps because you've been in an incapacitating event, or perhaps you've passed away in the midst of your business. And so when I work with business owners, and as one myself in thinking about what my own exit is going to be, and what I've seen with clients that I've worked with we've stewarded them through the process, and from some stories and lessons that I've learned, there are a couple of things that I'd like to share with you about this process of succession, of moving out, of moving on, of letting your business take on its next iteration or the shutdown. And forgive me, I have allergies. Okay. So many of the things that I see for business owners, and that of course I tackle for myself, is that when you're looking to make this transition out, one of the things that I love to share with business owners, because they're often not thinking about that transition, what I love to share with people is I really want you to begin with the end in mind, right? What do you actually want to have happen when you leave? Do you want to sell and take a profit? Do you want to shut down? Do you want to pass it on to the next generation, to someone who's key in your life or a family member? That can often be difficult for business owners because if you're in the trenches of entrepreneurship like I am, you know that you are often so enmeshed in those day-to-day, month-to-month decisions, and that time when you're leaving just seems so far out, right? But one of the key things about thinking about where you want to go allows you to reverse engineer the process to get to where you want to get to. And so I want to share a couple of key things that I've seen that have led to success in the succession process for business owners. First of all, you're going to have a business owner that is very keyed into or is working with professionals that allow them to be keyed into having those business fundamentals that often fly by the wayside. Are you keeping your corporate books and records up to date? Are you having your annual meetings? Do you even know what those things are? You'd be amazed to see and know how many people who are running multi-million-dollar businesses, I asked them where their corporate records book is, where their seal is, when their last time was that they've kept a minute. They've got no idea what I'm talking about, right? So I think that goes to show that you can have an extreme amount of success without having fundamentals in place. But I think that also leads you to think about how much more successful, how much more secure can you feel when you really know what it is to have that foundation for your business and you know that you're moving, you're standing, you're rocking on solid ground. So I think that successful succession is going to be built on those fundamentals of keeping corporate books and records up to date, of making sure that you've got your books and your numbers in order. Who's your accountant? Who's your CFP? Who's your CFO if you're at that level? Do you know what's going on with your money, right? Key things. Insurance and financial reports are a part of that as well. The other thing that I see for successful businesses, successful business owners that exit out is that they are really in tune with having built processes and procedures that can function without them being there. I think a key litmus test of how successful your business can be without you, how ready it is for succession, for you to not be there, is how long can you step away and the business runs, right? So what do you have documented about the policies and procedures that are necessary to move your business forward, to keep it in order? Who knows where that documentation is? Who's moving with you in tandem? Who are you training in tandem to move those policies and procedures forward? And then the last thing I will say is, who are those key players that you're working with, that you're mentoring, that you've identified that are going to take the reins when you're no longer here? So I don't know about you guys, but I was a huge fan of the HBO show Succession. I was a huge fan of it because it showed in so many ways how you don't want to go out. It was a show, the way that gentleman exited. So many negative lessons that you can take that you can flip to the positive, right? One of the things I think there are, I agree with our previous keynote speaker in that, there are just, you have to make sure that there are players there that are looking to be there that you're taking along with you. If you have a family business, do you really know and think that your kids want to take it over? You need to have those conversations. Have you identified the people in your business that you're bringing along and know what's going on, right? You've got to know who these key people are. You've got to train them up. It can't just be, I'm selling today. Where's that person at, right? You need to have had that train, that thought of how you're going to seamlessly move people in, how you're going to have the finances, perhaps based in insurance, for a buyout, so on and so forth. So you've got to put as much into the people, the procedures, the foundation in order to have that seamless shift to move you out in the way that you want to and to move that new blood in. Thank you.
Thank you, Shayna. When we go out to the table, we have some QR code that you have that is probably going to lead people to some of the areas and what they can do on succession planning. Do you, Shayna? Yes, or at least.
So what I've got for you guys
Yeah.
is my website. I'm here to answer any questions that
Okay.
you may have. Happy to answer them here while we're at the panel and anytime that I see you. Love this topic. Would love to help anyone who's looking
So
to
you
move
can
that
come out to
forward.
the
Thanks.
table with us afterwards, maybe. I have a number of succession documents that I'd be happy to also give you the QR code to. So loads of resources. Take advantage of this panel and what they've got to offer you. And I would like to introduce Amber, but Amber just told me something that is so interesting. She just got a big award at this conference. And it was, I may not say it right, the Leadership in Education. Was there another word to it?
It's
Is that it?
Outstanding Leadership at the Education 2.0.
Fantastic. That is
Thank you.
wonderful. Good
Thank you.
for you.
Wow.
So
Thank you.
I would like to then introduce Amber and have her go on for her learning matrix.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And just thank you to all of the panelists. And every single one of them have had such an important message. And to me, the heartbeat of that message is about change. And really, when we think about succession planning, it's change management. And change is not anything that any of us love. Raise your hand if you love change, right? Oh, a couple of you do. Well, never mind. The few crazies of us, right, love change. Woohoo, because we can help you with change. We're comfortable with change. But typically change leads to discomfort. Typically there's resistance to change. And in this concept of succession, it is the old guard that is often that person who is the most resistant. And that's because as they are looking for, they didn't do the fundamental planning, right? They're running around right now looking for who is that person going to be. They're looking for a unicorn. They're looking for a copy of themselves. They're not going to find that person. So I want to tell you a little tiny story about someone I'm working with now. His name's James. I've worked with him for several years. He is the CEO of his firm for the last 30 years, and it has been a very successful company that he has grown. It is the top firm in his industry. He's an exceptional leader, but he called me with a problem. And that problem was he's ready to retire, and he's ready to pass that on to the next person, but he can't find that person. He has interviewed over 25 people, and by the way, to get to the interview is a very exhaustive process of vetting them. Still can't find his unicorn. So I said, I'm going to ask you 3 questions, and those are the 3 questions I'm going to share with you today. So the first question has to do a little bit with what Nan had spoken about, which has to do with skills. Are there leadership training skills instituted in his organization or in yours that are specific to your industry? I'm not talking about leadership management or leadership development. It's on some learning management system somewhere that nobody ever takes, right? But that's specific to your industry. So think for a moment, what would be an absolutely crucial skill for your organization that the leader must have? What is that? And are you training to that currently in your organization now? So that's that first question. In fact, I want to share with you, Forbes did some research on this, and that's what all those numbers are on the slide there, that company training programs yield 218% higher income per employee than those who do not have those kinds of training in place. That's a wonderful number, right? Wouldn't we all like to get there? Of course, there is an expense to it, but 218% increase in revenue. Powerful. So my second question for James and for you has to do a little bit with what Karen was talking about. It has to do with knowledge transfer. And typically when we think knowledge transfer, we do think mentorship. That has been the more traditional method. But I would really challenge that we would have a knowledge transfer system. Maybe it's the policies and procedures. Maybe it is simply mentorship. But I think we should leverage AI. With the natural learning program algorithms that they have out there, they can take what we share and organize it and categorize it and make it easier to retrieve so we can share those best practices with those future leaders. So do you have a process in place of knowledge transfer? Even if it's simply documenting and keeping those minutes and those records, do you have that? If not, you need to, or you're not going to be able to have a seamless plan. So my last question, before I tell you though, I found some research on that too. This is Deloitte, actually. 86% of business leaders consider knowledge transfer to be of utmost importance, yet only 14% are ready for that challenge. Yikes. So we need to prioritize it. Just as we'd prioritize meeting our KPIs, we need to prioritize how we are transferring that knowledge. Okay, so my last question has to do with mindset. And this mindset concept is, do you have, and did James have, a legacy leadership mindset where you prioritize the development of future leaders, where you are shifting your focus from short-term achievements to long-term sustainability? Are you aware that every single interaction you have on your team has a ripple effect for long-term success? And having that intentional focus when you meet with the individuals in your organization. So that mindset is really important, and Harvard Business Review did some research on that and said that leaders who prioritize their legacy report 48% stronger performance during succession planning. So when we prioritize it, we see the benefit. So whenever you're thinking about how am I going to find that unicorn, or how am I going to find that duplicate of me, you're not going to. But if you do these steps and you have the training and the skills and you have the knowledge transfer and you have that mindset, you'll be able to cultivate that person from within your organization or find alignment with someone else that can take your organization to that next level. So I believe that when we apply change management and learning and development methodologies, we move from succession planning to succession management. We should be managing it every single day and not waiting until we're ready to retire, like poor James. He's still working on it. We don't wait. We take responsibility for that now, and we work with those individuals in our organization now that can be those future leaders, that can take those reins from us. So I will conclude with a quote from my book, Torch, and it is, before you pass the torch, you must first have a torch worth passing. Thank you.
Would you like to say something?
I got a leadership award yesterday.
Oh, you got a leadership award yesterday? Tell us about it.
But I also want to say that this morning...
You say anything you'd like, lady. It's no problem.
This morning I read on a news report that TELUS Health in British Columbia did a cross-Canada survey of young people in the workplace. What they found out was 40% of millennials feel isolated at work because they feel like nobody cares. And so one of the things, like I mentioned when I did my mentorship, was to really care. And yesterday when I was talking to someone at the table, I mentioned that, in my working with First Nations and being on site, young people come into my office and they're very surprised that somebody with my experience would even want to talk to them. They want communication, a lot of the times because they've grown up so tied to their phones and their computers, they lack social skills. And so they really need to know that they have support of those of us who have the experience to provide them with the mentorship that they need to really be successful in the future. And as Amber just said, it is about having the tools to pass on. It's about having the policies and procedures to lay your foundation, because without a foundation, the house falls down. And as I said yesterday when I got my award presented, was the moment of truth is always on the front line. Thank you.
So tell us about your award.
Oh, I received an award for outstanding leadership in the human resources industry.
Woo! Good for you. I think where we have really landed is that succession planning is not just for people who are retiring or walking out the door. We're seeing succession planning needed at every level of your organization. When you have a manager who leaves, you've got to have something in place for policy, procedures, performance standards, key performance indicators, all those kinds of things. And we need to think about who's that next person in line. And even if that person is, 35, let's say, or 40, if they leave, you still need to keep that ball rolling. And so succession planning is at all levels and all ages in reality.
And I even would say, because this is jiving in with what I'm seeing, the new workforce, it's very distributed, it's very global. It's more guild-like structures. So you need this new knowledge worker management deal is a little bit different from what we have done, and we need to understand and how to encourage this workforce.
And my last words would be, and make it digital if you can. Thank you so much. If you have any questions, we're going to be out at a table toward the doors at the end. We'll give you all kinds of goodies and QR code stuff you can get. So join us out there if you can do that. We'd be glad to see you.